The session is chaired by Professor Lalith Ananda and the rapporteur is Ms. Lanka.
We cordially invite the chair and the rapporteur to their respective tables, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the honor of giving a brief introduction of the chairperson of this session, Professor Lalith Ananda.
Professor Lalith Ananda is a professor in English attached to the Department of English and Linguistics at the University of Jayewardenapura. He obtained his PA in English from the University of Peradeniya in 1995, BA in English from the University of Kelaniya in 2000, MA in Linguistics from Jawaharlal Nehru University in 2000, MPhil in Generative Syntax from Jawaharlal Nehru University in 2008, and his PhD in Generative Syntax from Jawaharlal Nehru University in 2013.
He is a member of numerous educational and professional bodies in Sri Lanka, and he has broadened his expertise in a variety of academic areas including degree problem design, curriculum review, abstract and full paper review, and serving as a resource person in a number of universities and educational institutions. He has also served as an editor for many journals and student handbooks. His academic and administrative positions include serving as a coordinator, head of the department, and acting dean at the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences at the University of Jayewardenapura. Now, we cordially invite the presenters to their table.
Ms. W.S. Sudusinghe,
Dr. Pushpakumara,
Ms. Gunawardana,
Ms. Bandara,
Ms. DDL Willarachchi. We cordially invite the chairperson to commence the session.
Good morning to all of you. Dean of the faculty, the academic staff, presenters, students, and ladies and gentlemen. So we are about to commence the first session this morning on language and literature. We have 5 presenters, and each presenter will get 15 minutes for the presentation. At the end of 12 minutes, we will ring the bell. And then again, we will ring the bell at the end of 15 minutes, then you have to conclude. The discussion session we will have after all presentations, after all the 5 presentations. So, this morning, the first speaker or the presenter is Ms. W.S. Sudusinghe from Department of Languages, Faculty of Management, Social Sciences and Humanities of General Sir John Defense University. And she will be presenting on assessment of the knowledge and the use of metacognitive reading strategies among ESL learners. So now I invite Sudusinghe to do the presentation.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sudusinghe, attached to the Department of Languages, Faculty of Management, Social Sciences and Humanities of KU. Metacognition becomes a very important element in improving the critical thinking skills and the logical thinking of university undergraduates. And also, it enables them to become innovative thinkers as well as develop their learner autonomy. And also, this metacognition plays a crucial role in developing effective readers. Therefore, I conducted a study to assess the metacognitive awareness of reading strategies among the ESL learners in Sri Lankan universities. As mentioned by Arvijay 2019, improving reading competencies among English as a second language learners has gained much attention among the instructors and the researchers. And also, metacognition is identified as a vital ability in enhancing the logical thinking and independent learning and plays a significant role in screening, regularizing, and the conceptions among the students. Further, the strategic awareness and the ability of monitoring comprehension is regarded as crucial elements in skillful reading. The literature review of my study. A study conducted by Wanniarachchi 2008 highlighted that there is a constructive relationship between reading comprehension and the use of both perceived strategy and the strategy use. A study conducted in South Africa with the participation of 131 first-year ESL learners revealed that there is a strong relationship between metacognitive awareness and L2 reading. Further, a research carried out in USA with the participation of 1,164 university undergraduates revealed that the readers with a high metacognitive awareness proven to be successful readers than the peers who had low levels of metacognitive awareness. Further, two studies carried out in Indonesia and Malaysia revealed that the students with high metacognitive awareness have proven to be very good in their language competencies than the ones who had low levels of metacognitive awareness, which indicates that literature gives enough evidence to show that having good metacognitive awareness enables language learners to become highly competent in their learning process. Then, the justification of my study. Even though plenty of research has been carried out on language reading, the studies carried out to examine the metacognitive awareness of reading strategies among the university undergraduates, especially with regard to the Sri Lankan context, are limited. Hence, the current study was aimed to assess the MRSA among ESL learners in Sri Lankan universities. The objectives of my study. The general objective was to assess the MARS among the ESL learners in Sri Lankan universities. The specific objective of my study was to assess the association of socio-demographic variables to the MARS among the ESL learners in Sri Lankan universities. The methodology of my study. The study has been carried out as a descriptive cross-sectional study, and the study population comprised of the ESL learners representing the different streams of study such as medical, engineering, social sciences, law, allied health sciences, and computing students in Sri Lankan universities. And the data collection method of my study, the data was gathered using an online questionnaire developed in English. And the questionnaire was circulated on social media like Facebook, WhatsApp, and Viber for a period of 2 weeks. And the study instruments. The questionnaire comprised of two sections, Section A and Section B. Section A comprised of questionnaire catered to the socio-demographic information, and Section B comprised of metacognitive awareness of reading strategies inventory, which is a good scale with a high reliability and internal consistency. In fact, this scale has been modified in 2018 after a confirmatory factor analysis by the authors, and it comprised of 15 items under 3 dimensions, such as the global reading strategies, problem-solving strategies, and support reading strategies. The ethical considerations of my study. The permission to use the scale was obtained from the original developers, and the informed consent has been obtained from the participants before the collection of the data. And the data analysis of my study, the data were analyzed using SPSS 23.0, including descriptive statistics, independent sample t-tests, and 13 post-hoc tests on one-way ANOVA. The significant results of my study. As per the study results, majority of the participants were female and the mean age of the participants was 21.54. And as per the academic stream, majority of the study participants were representing the low stream. And the self-evaluation as a reader, majority of the study participants identify themselves as average readers. The table given here shows the mean values of the metacognitive awareness of reading strategies as per indicated in the original scale. And the awareness of global reading strategies. As per the results of the study, there was no prevailing substantial difference between the two genders' mean difference with regard to GRS. And the allied health science students had the highest mean on GRS among all the academic streams. And the computing students had the highest mean on PSS and SRS among all the academic streams. Further, there was a statistically significant mean difference in awareness of global reading strategies, on problem-solving strategies, on support reading strategies. The conclusions and the recommendations of my study. The study finding revealed that the mean value of the GRS and PSS and SRS were at a level of medium, which means most of the readers were identified as average readers. Hence, it was clear that it is necessary to make effective interventions to reduce, improve the reading skills of the university undergraduates. Because when the metacognitive reading strategies or the techniques are inculcated in the students, it leads for them to become innovative thinkers as well as to become learners who are interested in finding further information about the field that they are specialized in. And also, it will help them to enhance their critical thinking skills as potential learners. And also, this becomes very useful in designing the university curriculum, policy making, and language teaching. And when designing the classroom activities, the lecturers, instructors, and the teachers can employ most of these techniques in their classroom so that the students will boost their interest in searching for information and also become independent learners. Therefore, I do believe that improving the metacognitive reading strategies among the university students will be a valuable investment for their future. These are my references, and thank you very much for listening to my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Sudusinghe. Next, I invite Dr. PBSL Pushpakumara from the University of Jayewardenapura to present his work on peer assessment, Sri Lankan English as a second language, teachers' perception.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Pushpakumara from the University of Jayewardenapura Department of Linguistics. I'm going to talk about peer assessment, Sri Lankan English as a second language, teachers' perception. What is peer assessment? It's defined as something that learners consider and specify the level, value, or quality of a product or performance of other equal status learners. It's a very common phenomenon that we even use in day-to-day life, that when we do something, even our peers may say, not in that way, do it in this way, right? It's just very common practice in our day-to-day practical life. So why can't we use this phenomenon for our learning in the language classroom? So it's a widely spoken alternative learner-centered assessment method. It has many benefits actually. Literature is said that those who are involved in peer assessment outperform others who receive teacher feedback only and develop cognitive competencies as critical thinking, high-level thinking, and also they enhance personal, intellectual and professional skills, and they develop social competencies such as communication skills, collaborative skills and lifelong learning. Further, peer assessment helps learners to reduce test anxiety and stress, and they help learners to develop their sense of ownership, responsibility and their motivation to learn. Yet, unfortunately, teachers generally hold reservation regarding peer assessment. There are various reasons why they don't want to employ this very beneficial peer assessment in their language classrooms. One, lack of experience with the peers and overmarking. Reliability issues, time consuming, friendship biases, vague, non-specific feedback of peers and no solid explanations as given by a teacher. So many teachers say and or reserve, they are not willing to employ this strategy in their language classroom simply because of these reasons. So it's not a very popular method in language classrooms among global ESL teachers and particularly in ESL teachers in Sri Lanka, in spite of the benefits I talked before. Also, published research discussing the benefits or the teacher, explaining the teacher's perception regarding this peer assessment in the Sri Lankan educational context is very limited. Therefore, I formulated the following research question. How do Sri Lankan university level ESL teachers perceive peer assessment? What do they simply think about peer assessment? So for that I used 6 ESL teachers. As a part of the study, 2 teachers observed students assessing their own peers, 9 writing tasks in groups and gained hands-on experience in peer assessment. 4 other teachers also participated in the study and they had peer assessment experience elsewhere, not as a part of this particular study. Then I conducted a focus group interview and 2 one-on-one interviews. Interview guide was adapted from Penn's study, and I used theme-based content analysis to analyze data obtained. According to the data received, teachers believe that peer assessment develops cognitive and metacognitive competencies such as critical thinking, higher level thinking and active independent learning rather than passive learning. For instance, one teacher participant once said, when students think why this is wrong, they are actively involved in the process of learning. So they themselves ask why this is wrong. So they are in the process of learning actually by asking the same question. Also the teacher participant 4 said, during peer assessment, teacher becomes less authoritarian. This is one of the common problems in our ESL classrooms, that students don't talk when the teacher keeps on talking. But in this process, actually, it's the students who talk mostly. They exchange ideas, share experiences, discuss, interact, collaborate. So the teacher becomes less authoritarian and teaching and learning become student-centered, which we talk mostly today, learner-centered learning. Students seem to be actively involved in the learning process. I think it's good, according to teacher participant 4. And these findings are consistent with the previous findings actually in this field of study. And also, peer assessment enhances personal and intellectual skill sets such as lifelong learning, taking responsibility for one's own learning, and developing knowledge through mutual interaction. Again, teacher participant 1 shared her views. Reading peers' essays helps them to improve. Peer comment may trigger more than my one. So actually, when we talk to the students, they also reveal the fact that they like to learn from their peers, not from the teacher. That's of course from a different study, but this particular teacher came up with a similar kind of idea. And also, this is consistent with the previous findings that learners who are involved in peer assessment exercises benefit from reading other students' works as they prepare to give feedback. This is also very important, reading others' work to give effective, useful feedback, because you all know that now the reading is like very less common practice among the students. So this will also help them to learn at least their peers' writing and critically review it actually in order to give productive feedback in the language classroom. And also peer assessment develops professional skills such as teaching skills, independent evaluative skills, professional collaboration and teamwork, communication skills, negotiation skills, listening skills and editing skills. These are very important in today's professional world for our undergraduates or even after that in the world of work. So teacher participant one said peer assessment helps the learners to develop editing skills. However, in previous studies we have similar view is reported. Peer assessment helps learners develop various writing skills including brainstorming, outlining, drafting and editing. And also most of the teachers participated in this particular study said that it saves time. If there is a procedure where peers give feedback for their friends before the teacher marks the essay, that will help the students to produce a better piece of writing. There will be an improved version by the time it comes to teacher. It saves teachers time for marking because it has been marked by a peer before. And this finding is, however, this is contrary to the findings of some previous studies. However, Min argues that planning and implementation of peer assessment consumes time. That's true. Teachers have this problem actually, it takes time. Yet, the time is spent on training of peer assessment compensates for the learners' enhanced learning. Although we are too ambitious that our learners should learn immediately, that doesn't happen, it takes time, it's a process. So this is one of the processes that we can employ in our language classrooms. Not every day probably, but then and there at least. And it enhances learner motivation. Very interesting. In my one participant 3 said actually, in my class students enjoy correcting others' essays. They seem to feel that they are privileged, they like it. However, peer assessment has challenges. One, when it comes to language classroom, limited language proficiency of the participants. One teacher participant once said, one day I asked my students to write a paragraph and did peer correction. At the end of that day, when I collected the papers and I could see that none of them had spotted any error, even grammar or spelling error. Maybe they are not very sure how to correct the error. So this is a problem. When it comes to language, they are also learners. You and Lee too question whether peer assessment can be effectively and successfully implemented in ESL classroom where L2 proficiency plays a significant role in determining subjects and students' ability to give and utilize feedback. So what can we do? And another challenge is this, friendship biases. In our country, students just say something for the sake of saying something and simply because of friendship. This is also a very common problem, especially in Asian countries. Previous research also support this claim. Students from collectivist cultures such as Asian tend to avoid giving critical comments in order to maintain interpersonal harmony, cooperation and consensus between students. So actually whether we are going to use peer as a as a method of assessment or as a method of learning is a different matter, because there are different terms used in. For instance, peer assessment, peer learning, peer review, peer feedback, all these are technical words synonymously we can use for this same purpose, which I use peer assessment actually. Then, yes, we identified some challenges, but at the same time there are suggestions coming from the teachers. How can we do this better? Group-based peer assessment is just one suggestion. We can, actually this was suggested by the teacher participant 3. We can put them, or the learners, into groups and then do it. Then there are diverse viewpoints. When someone doesn't know something, others can help. So, conclusion. Teacher participants in this particular study, all of them hold positive perception about peer assessment. Peer assessment develops learners' skills as we just observed. However, when organizing peer assessment activities, challenges such as limited language proficiency of the learners, friendship biases should be taken into consideration. Techniques such as effective grouping can be used to overcome such challenges. And also, teacher guidance is vital to successfully implement peer assessment and gain maximum benefits. It's not that the learners, you assess your peers, go away. Teacher has a critical role to organize and get it done actually. And therefore, peer assessment can be cautiously, carefully used in ESL writing classes in Sri Lanka and other similar contexts. The generalizability of the findings is subject to certain limitations. For instance, the small sample size in this particular study. Therefore, future studies can be conducted using representative larger sample. So these are my references. I would like to thank the University of Jayewardenapura that sponsored for this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sampath. Next I invite S.K. Amarasena from the Department of English Language Teaching, University of California, to present her analysis on how current social media trends affect transformation of Sri Lankan English morphological processes. It's a study based on Ananda's YouTube channel.
So, a very good morning all of you. I'm Amarasena from University of California and I'm an undergraduate. So, this is about an analysis on how current social media trends affect the transformation of Sri Lankan English morphological processes, and the study is based on Ananda YouTube channel. So, this will be the content and this will be the flow of the presentation. Now, we all know that regular changes are happening in the world, even in our society, in the language side. So, it can be identified as a common phenomena in Sri Lanka as well. After the spread of English language, most probably to other continents and the countries in the world, about 18th century onwards, the English language developed into new varieties. And Sri Lankan English is also such an example after the development of new varieties, and Kachu in 1982 defined these languages, or specifically Sri Lankan English languages like varieties, as transplanted languages. It occurs due to various reasons such as social, cultural, political and economic reasons. And accordingly, Sri Lankan English is one of the languages that is constantly influenced by the various languages and social aspects, and among them, in the present context, social media platforms play a major role in this. So, when it comes to the process of morphological processes and the language changes, as I said, social, cultural, economic aspects are playing a major role. So, the focus of our study is how Sri Lankan English is modified according to the trends in social media specifically, and this seeks how morphological processes invent new words and phrases through the evidence provided by this YouTube channel. So if I ask a question from you all, what are morphological processes? And for examples, we can take affixation, compounding, reduplication, conversion, borrowing. Those are the examples for morphological processes. From that, we can deduce that it is adjusted to conform to a certain context, and this can be categorized as a formation or change in the form and function of a word that will fit into that context. Now, these are the research objectives of our research. The current study attempts to seek addresses to identify and analyze morphological processes that are related to Sri Lankan English specifically, and to identify how words are formed in Sri Lankan context to make a new variety using these social media trends. And that is another objective is to identify the productive morphological processes that will be building up through these social media trends. Now, this is the data collection method that we use. So, data were gathered according to the YouTube channel of Humanities, who is acting as Auntie Netta there. And the data type is digital data, and we used 8 videos and 4 morphological processes basically. Now, why we used this YouTube channel or Auntie Netta's videos? Social and cultural background of this Nimi Haraskama is the major reason for this. Being a Sri Lankan, she has the roots for the Sri Lanka as well as she has lived in England as well. That is why we use this. So, let's move to the findings and discussions. The first thing is borrowing. Some of the terms that are incorporated with the process of borrowing are donor language, recipient language, and source words. So, borrowing occurs when speakers of a given language have had some contact with another language. So, that is how this borrowing is happening. Also, we can say that the source words of this borrowing, while at the same time adapting the morphology of the recipient language, is happening through this borrowing. And for this, we use Horgan's theory, Horgan 1950. So, there are certain types of borrowing. Basically, when we are discussing about the types of borrowing, we have to know about the model language as well as borrowing language, apart from that, importation and substitution. Now, types of borrowing or the theory of borrowing. So, this is how we categorize the findings under borrowings with the Horgan's theory, loan words, loan lengths, and loan shifts, and there are categorizations as well. Let's discuss. Now, talking about the loan words. Loan words are always unanalyzable because they are units in the recipient language basically. So, for an example, we identify the words like karpincha, biryani, vatlappam. So, the conversation is English, but these words were identified within the conversation. It means they have loan words within the conversation. And loan lengths. So, in loan lengths, we can see 3 categories as blended stem, blended derivative, and blended compound. So, talking about this blended stem, it is like in Sri Lankan English, the singular stems are blended with English regular plural suffix s. For an example, there are bylaws, so s is there as the plural suffix. And blended derivative, it is like it is from the stem or the Sri Lankan English we can observe the adding of fy as to form new words, and that is blended derivative. And blended compound is to demonstrate how compounds are formed. So that is a vast area that we will be discussing later. And loan shift, this is the final subsection of the borrowing. So in Sri Lankan English compound milk toffee, if you take the milk toffee as an example, that was identified where the morphemes in the singular compound kiri toffee are substituted with the 2 English translation equivalents, milk and toffee. So, talking about the compounds. So, compounds are formed when 2 words from different languages are used together to yield a new meaning. So, the most important thing is a new meaning is created through these 2 words. And there are some examples that we identified, and when we consider about the compounds, singular words can be combined, English words can be combined, as well as singular or Tamil language, thus English words can be combined. Affixation. So this is yet another morphological process that we identified, and their fy or phi can be seafoodish, bodish, like words were identified in these conversations, and reduplication. So reduplication means it is repetition basically. It is a process of like linguistic characteristics are associated with South Asian languages, and it is repetition of root stem to form new words. In reduplication, there are two main categories as total and partial. Yes, now let's move to the analysis part. Now, why these things are happening? Why new words are formed? Why morphological processes are formed with these new trends of social media? For an instance, we can take linguistic pressure. Linguistic pressure is a special type of social pressure which operates to produce linguistic conformity. So that is why people or the conversation partners tend to make new words and form new words. And with this, in Sri Lankan English, we can see how social pressure on them, basically on economic, political, multi-religious, multi-ethnic, multi-linguistic, and on new terms. So next one is cross-linguistic dynamics. So according to Schneider, language is diversified and developed. So emergence of English in a non-native country means encounter between superstrate as well as substrate. So when this cross-linguistic dynamic is happening, it means the effect of this superstrate as well as substrate is there. That is why these cross-linguistic dynamics tend to make new words when English is used within a Sinhala-speaking community. And that is how Sri Lankan English has become a new trend. Now, if we talk about the diversity of root language, now we know that root language is something that we should talk because Sri Lanka is a Sri Lankan social linguistic context shares diverse nature of many languages. It has Sinhala, English, Tamil, and that diversity leads to have many dialects. And this Ananda or Nimi Haraskama, also a person with numerous backgrounds, it means father is Sinhala and mother is Tamil, so that is how the background or the diversity of root language has been changed, it has been resulted in this usage of words. Next one is productivity. So another thing that we discussed or identified is the most productive morphological process that was there, and we identified that in Sri Lankan English the most productive or the most used morphological process is borrowing. Now, when we talk about these new vocabulary items and how they have come into existence with current trends, neologism is a new term. So, theoretical framework is neologism, and it means new coinages. So, new coinages also happen in a theoretical aspect, neologism. Further, social media and food-related neologisms are there, and we found certain words like in-store, vegetable, like this. And in conclusion, we can say that this study discusses about major trends and how social media trends found in Sri Lankan English and how they have affected the changes in Sri Lankan English morphology. For an example, we identified morphological processes such as borrowing, compounding, affixation, and reduplication. And apart from that, new vocabulary items were identified through these morphological processes, and also the study throws light towards the connection between language and society. Thereby, we can create a connection between this language and society very carefully, in a crucial way, because the gradual change in the language means the changes in the society directly. And the identified morphological processes highlight that the usage of Sri Lankan English has a rapid growth within the Sri Lankan context, within the community by now, and thus the expansion of Sri Lankan English vocabulary is there, and even though that they are not standardized, the current social trends, social media trends have rendered to have social morphological processes and new terms and coinages within the language. So that is the end of our study. So these are the references. And yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Amarasena. Next, I invite S. Bandara, from Street Business School to present a work on eye care and blindness literacy, need for defining a new construct.
I'm Bandara. We are here today to present one of our very interesting research, which is eye care and blindness literacy. Need for defining a new construct. So I will read the authors. The T. Suraweera, C. Wickramaarachchi, A. Gamage, C. Wanniarachchi, K. Mudalige, A. Kalpashaka, and S. Bandara. I am presenting paper today. So before going to detail, I want to draw your attention on two things. So this is one of the research undertaken under the World Bank Ahead Research Project on quality of life and employability potentials of people with visual impairment and blindness in Sri Lanka. So the other point is, so this is not a study on any language, not a language study. This is a development study. We were able to come up with a new construct. So I will take you through these points throughout these sessions. So let me to start with a brief introduction about vision. So this is a simple knowledge you and I will aware about. How do you perceive information to process your brain? So which is done by through 5 senses. These are sight from your eyes, hearing from your ear, touch from your skin, and taste by your tongue, and smell using your nose. So but out of these 4 senses, which one is most important? That is vision. Vision is considered as the most important and complex sensory modality of human. So why? So I will give us the very important and one factor. The scientist says that about 80 to 85% of human perception, learning, activities, cognition, which are mediated through vision. So let me I hope now you have some idea about the vision. I want to give you some facts about the vision impairment, about the world as well as Sri Lanka. So as of now, there are around 7.8 billion people in this world. So fish, approximately 2.2 billion people are visually impaired. Of this, almost half of the visual impairment of the world can be preventable. And of the 2.2 billion people, almost 85% people live in developing countries. Let's look at how Sri Lanka looks like. So far, the population is 21.7 million, of which approximately 1 million people are visually impaired. So within this visually impaired, the population, it has mild vision, the low vision plus blindness. So now you know what is blindness, what is vision, and some facts about the vision impairment. So why actually we look at this kind of topic? So with the intellectual discussion with our professor and the research team, and we found 2 critical issues. One is, as I clearly said, almost half of the vision impairment, visually impaired people, the causes can be be preventable. So the second is the people across the world who are visually impaired and blindness are socially excluded. What is socially excluded mean? They can't participate fully in economic, social and political and cultural life. So how we can correct this problem? So the possible approach is to make the society literate. So I will take you through this the complex idea about the social inclusion. So the opposite is social exclusion. Social exclusion is a global phenomenon which is highly emphasized by the 2030 agenda, the social the sustainable development goals. It says that no one will be left behind. That's the slogan of the SDG. And they worked with the countries aiming at curbing the discrimination and inequalities of people, giving particular attention on the disability. So, how the UN emphasize this social inclusion jargon? So, what they said is, they said to ensure the social inclusion, that is increasing the full participation in economic, social, political and cultural life. With inclusion, social inclusion, then you can ensure the social integration. Social integration refers that everyone in the society, you have a right and you have a task to play. So, once the social inclusion and social integration is ensured, then you can see the social cohesion, that is no divisions in the society. If there is a division, everyone has a right and you have a task to play to reduce the divisions. So with that, we conclude, yes, we need to define a literacy about this subject area. So how we can start this? So first thing, you and I were aware about that to make a change, especially the behavioral change, you need to, first is the, to ensure the literacy of the society. So when it comes to our research, to encourage prevention on vision-related problems as well as to promote the social inclusion and integration, awareness level of the levels should be enhanced, and after that the attitudes can be enriched. So with our discussion and exploring the literature, what we have understood is that knowledge and awareness of this subject area is substantially lacking. So then what we can do? So we decided to go into detail of defining this literature. So what we should do is, we have to understand what is this literacy and how it can be defined. Okay, so now we have some sort of idea that yes, the development of a literacy is important, but that is not enough. So we have to do it in a scientific manner. So with that, we came to this research with the research question, that is there a need for defining a literacy construct? How about IKI and blindness? We call it ECD literacy. For the moment, we name it IKI and blindness literacy. If so, how it can be done? So we have two research objectives of this study. The one is to examine the significance and the need of such a literacy construct. The second is to identify a basis of conceptualization of the CP literacy construct. So please note that this research entirely based on the literature, past published literature. We have done an extensive review favoring two things, that is the literacy's models which can be used to define disability in terms of visual impairment and blindness. So, with the literature review, we came up with more than 40 different types of literacies. Here I have given one example, the food literacy, and the next slide I have given few literacies to get an idea. And so we found there were no such literacy has been developed. And the second is we found that a model called ICF literacy, that is International Classification of Functioning Disability and Health. So this is developed by WHO in 2001, which is a model widely used to discuss about the disability, and it is a kind of a biopsychological model that conceptualizes disability as an outcome of health condition as well as the contextual factors. So with these two findings, we conclude our results. So what are the results? Yes, we found that there's a significant need and significance of improving the level of public awareness of ICAN blindness. Yes, that is well established. And the second is need for defining a new construct exploring ICAN blindness. So we name it ICAN blindness literacy, which has been established. And last, the dimension of ICF model that you have seen, there were 5 dimension items in the model, and which can be used to develop this ICAN blindness literacy construct. So with that, I will conclude this the presentation, and with the findings of this research, we can clearly say that there are two very clear future research can be done. The one is that characterizing new construct, that is ICAN blindness literacy, can be developed, and later the development and validation of a measurement instrument of ICAN blindness literacy construct is really essential. So these are some of the references of our study. So I would like to acknowledge the project. World funded a head project on the quality of life and employment potentials of persons with visual impairment of Sri Lanka, as well as a student business school who supported in various ways to carry out these studies. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Bandara. Next, I invite Ms. DDL Willarachchi from the Department of Languages, Faculty of Management and Social Sciences and Humanities of KDU to present a work on architecting the nation from Ceylon to Sri Lanka and the role of the evil other.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Willarachchi from the Department of Languages, and I'm here to talk about architecting the nation from Ceylon to Sri Lanka and the role of the evil other. I would like to ask you whether you have ever been the other in someone else's narrative. I'm sure all of us have been there at some point in our lives, because in present-day Sri Lanka, we see the other in many forms. We see women as the other, we see certain ethnic groups as the other, we see the military as the other in certain situations, and I know I'm opening a can of worms here, but please bear with me. Right, so I'm going to tell you the story of nation building in Sri Lanka. Nation building is an umbrella term that covers a multitude of processes, including social, institutional, political, linguistic, and ideological processes. So, in this, nation building narratives play a major role in actually constructing a nation. In order to create a general identity for a particular nation, the nationalist school essentially utilizes visible manifestations and characteristics of nations in an attempt to create a homogeneous society. This often includes the exclusion of minorities via practices such as adoption of state languages and religions. So, nation-building narratives are used to mobilize masses for particular purposes such as war and revolutions, providing heavily mediated versions of history or myths. Therefore, scrutiny of nation-building narratives is important for understanding social movements and identifying underlying political agendas. So, in nation narration, one of the most common dichotomies used is the dichotomy of us and the other, which is a recurring phenomenon, and nation-building narratives in Sri Lanka are no exception. So, my study attempts to critique the theories and politics of nationalism, nation-building, and nation narration imbued in two texts, namely, A Message to the Young Men of Ceylon by Gunawardana, a speech delivered in 1922, and President's speech to the Parliament on the repeal of the LTTE by the former Sri Lankan President Wanniarachchi delivered in 2009, vis-à-vis the concept of the other. These two speeches mark pivotal political moments in the history of Sri Lanka. One, the struggle for freedom from the British Empire, and the other, the celebration of the closure of the 30-year civil war against the LTTE, where the nationalist spirit was at its highest. In the course of the analysis, these two speeches were subjected to an in-depth textual analysis in an attempt to critique the theories and politics of nationalism, nation construction, and nation narration imbued in the two texts, vis-à-vis the concept of the other by Baba, a concept where a particular community or a person is seen as pushed to the peripheries and no place is given in the center, along with nation building and narration theories of Homi Baba and Franz Fanon. So, nation building myths, nationalistic icons and symbols and revolutionary spirit are amongst the key main elements in modern nation narration as well as nationalism. So these create abstract yet powerful notions of the nation and act as the imaginary cornerstones on which the concept of the nation is based. So nation building, as I told earlier, includes the element of homogenizing, where attempts are made to project an entire nation as consistent of a homogeneous entity. True to this idea, Jayewardenapura's speech attempts to construct a nation for his people, and it begins with going back to the lion myth and the arrival of the share. He celebrates a glorious pre-colonial past, providing his audience with a sense of shared origins and a common past and a collective identity in the present. But who is the actual target of his speech? Clearly, he is addressing a group of English-educated young Sinhalese men. So, is this entity can this entity be homogeneous as he envisioned? So we can see such essentializing of a country's people in constructing a nation puts in motion practices of inclusion and exclusion, given that, which is harmful given that Ceylon was never such a homogeneous entity. Though nationalism was essentially fighting against the empire, this kind of exclusion in terms of other ethnic, religious and gender groups flawed the concept at its very inception, and the consequences of which Sri Lanka suffers to date. In his narration, Gunawardana traces his people's origin back to the lion myth and states, I quote, "We Sinhalese should remember that our ancestors came from Lalith." And he closely follows the narration given in the Mahabharata. And then he says, I quote, "Our first king Vijaya left no issue, immediately invalidating the left their offspring, Jayewardenapura and Visala, who are recorded in the folklore. And to move on to my next point, it is interesting to notice that in order to overthrow the British and the Empire, he is making use of another colonialist, imperialist narrative here, because Vijaya the Conqueror and his people were also colonizers. But during the course of history, it became almost the truth of the country. They are not colonizers, we actually are the direct descendants. The Sinhalese are the direct descendants of Vijaya. And a similar strategy is actually employed by Gunawardana Rajapaksa in 2009, where he celebrates the victory against the LTTE, linking it with figures and events from the past which serve as nationalist icons. Despite attempting to be a little more inclusive than Dharmapala's speech in 1922, Rajapaksa's narration, though it employed Sinhala and Tamil languages both, posed its ancient Sinhala Buddhist kings and freedom fighters as the common icons of nationalism. This allows the sacred past to live in the present. However, to a multi-ethnic and multi-religious country like Sri Lanka, these icons are hardly applicable as common. Because all monarchs mentioned here are Sinhala Buddhist kings, and when he mentions other kings from other ethnicities, they are projected as enemies or the evil other. So we can see throughout the course of nation building in Sri Lanka, the other is usually tainted as evil, someone with the potential of doing harm to the country. In the region of the earth, Franz Fanon identifies 4 stages of national cultural development, and glorification of past is identified as its second phase. However, it is criticized as this glorification of the past prevents a nation from achieving true development. So, in addition to glorifying the past, Dharmapala's speech, however, provides a rather broader vision as he also encourages, driving the nation to development. I quote, "We must learn to stand on our legs and not depend on the alien. We must revive our industries, give our work to countrymen first, before we feed the distant Austrian and Belgian who supply us with this manufacture." Sharpened by this revolutionary edge, Dharmapala's vision and mission for the emerging nation is clearly visible. So in this instance, unlike when his othering led to internal divisions, here we see him encouraging his countrymen to become a united force to overthrow the British rule and gain true independence. Right. However, in Rajapaksa's speech, the radical activist edge is dulled and the enemy is projected as someone seen within the country. I quote, "There are only 2 peoples in the country. One is the people that love this country. The other comprises the small groups that have no love for the land of their birth." As opposed to Dharmapala's essay, Rajapaksa stresses that people whoever, he creates a division from within the country where he says certain people are patriots, certain people are not. But what is problematic here is the definition of the so-called patriots. In the regime, we saw that what happened in reality was people who accepted the way of thinking, vision of the Rajapaksa regime were seen as, the patriots. Anyone who expressed the slightest form of dissent or questioning were seen as the evil other, the troublemakers, the national troublemakers. So, this exemplifies one danger behind nation narration and dichotomies involved in the process, namely the emergence of a political monopoly or a dictatorship. So here is a summary of the others depicted, the British versus the Sri Lankans. Here the British were the others. Native Sri Lankans before Vijaya and his crew, their natives were the others. Sri Lankans and the enemies, the LTTE, the terrorist group seen as the others. And patriots of other ethnic and religious groups from its narration by the majority of Sinhala Buddhists paved the way to the 30th Civil War by the Tamil separatists. According to Fanon, when the nation is passed, I quote, when the nation is passed over for the race and the tribe is preferred to the state, there will be multiple nationalisms, unquote, which divide the population of a country, so the initial intended motive of homogeneity is threatened. The end result of the nations of nationalism is to boil down to separatism, where each nation, based on ethnicity, demands a separate state, which in turn threatens the territorial integrity of a newly independent country. So, when dominant Asian narratives of Sri Lanka gave prominence to one race and religion, they displaced the other narratives and ethnic groups, which led to the need for the marginalized to look for an alternative nationalism. This crowning down of walls of nationalism could be seen in varied perspectives, and the most positive of those is the way in which enables the concept of the nation to break free from the initial homogeneous identity. This now forces the nations to recognize its communities as part of a more diverse cohort. It encourages the nation to, rather than highlight homogeneity, to recognize diversity and find strength within that. So it is evident that most of the elements in shaping nationalism and nation still remain, though Sri Lanka has moved a long way since when it was known as Ceylon. Nation building and nation narration as modes of subversion in rejecting colonization has been undoubtedly effective, but as the analysis shows, it has also created many problems that have lasting effects. So, to relate the study to the theme of the conference, now we are talking about economic revival, national security, sustainability through advancement of science, technology and innovation. And I would like to make this movement, to use this movement to suggest the need for a more inclusive approach in all these. That is the role of humanities, as I believe, to pull your sleeve and tell, look here, you cannot achieve all these goals unless you have the proper human resource and the national support to get there. So, we know that throughout the history, building of our nation had its strong impacts and also it has its drawbacks, because we were always focused on a higher ideal while also creating these evil others, and now that the tendency is to find these evil others from within our own community, it poses a great threat. So with that note, I'll end my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. And here are my references.
Thank you, Ms. Willarachchi. So that concludes the presentations of the morning. So let's commence the question and answer session. For that, I invite the audience to ask questions, and if you have any further clarifications that you see from the presenters, it's time for you now. We have 15 minutes for this session.
Two comments. One is, I'm not a linguist or language person, therefore I'm very sorry I can't comment on the first two. But the last two, very interesting. I will miss Willarachchi's paper. This is social inclusion. Even we were talking about social inclusion with people, disabled people with disabilities. So I think it's a very, very interesting paper, and that is something that we should progress, carry on for the nation building. Just to add a comment, I don't remember, this is Amarasena the first chapter. He is narrating and revealing how historically we are a mixed community. That is something I wanted to get you there. When it comes to one nation thing, we are a pluralistic society, no question about it. And pluralistic societies can emerge and develop if the other part is not there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for an interesting comment. And yes, that is exactly what I was trying to highlight. Because, we are not a society in which where we can talk about hybridity even. We have to definitely go for a multiplicity-based approach because, that is where our strength lies. So as long as we try to create this one nation based on the ideals of a particular religion, ethnic identity, these problems will always occur. And again, what happens is we get pitted against each other in the internal conflicts, as evidenced by the events of the recent past as well. We will never move forward until we embrace this multiplicity in us and we plan and we practice inclusivity at all levels. Thank you, sir.
Okay, we being an island nation, there is no way we can be unitary or whatever. Thank you.
Yeah, this comment goes to Lakshita, Ms. Lakshani. I think it was a very interesting presentation, and your last slide actually explained how the nation really takes place. But I hope that in your research findings you must be talking much of ethnicity, race, and subsequently develops into a nation when they are confined to a geographical territory. So that is how the nations are built. In this, emphasis on ethnicity has to be highlighted because when we fought the war, which you are quoting always, some people tried to interpret it as a problem of ethnicity. It's an ethnic crisis, but it is not so. So therefore, in your research, I recommend, have you finished the research? Not yet.
This part of the study is done, sir, but it's actually a part of a larger study I'm doing. So whatever the comments you can give will be useful.
Yeah. So it was not an ethnic crisis, right? But also you can interpret economic deprivation, the perceived and actual. So all those things can be incorporated in your research. But highlight, how the nations are built when they are confined into one geographical territory. That is how the nations are. Nation building. You have to define all those terms. And it was a well-done presentation. The second question goes to Professor Suraweera's research and your team. Ms. Amarasena. Yeah. Bandara. You said that there's an increase in the whole thing, the visual impairment and this is increased. The 5% was highlighted. I don't know how you came into that figure. You have some statistics which would have been interesting if you have presented. Is it the blindness in the birth or halfway through in the life? So we would like to have some comment on that.
Thank you, sir. Actually, that number was taken from the last census that was done in 2011. So they have, I think first time they have conducted the survey on disability, which says that the function disability in vision, so which includes the blind people affected by technically like Varangas like me. So that everyone is there. So for the moment there is no data which can be highlighted. What is the number exactly who are blind and who are having low vision and all.
Thank you. Have you been in access to 2021 statistics? Not yet.
Not yet, sir.
Not yet. Yeah. It was a very nice presentation and
Yes.
very impressive findings. Thanks to Prof and the team. I think 5% is fairly alarming anyway, very large. And this has to be embedded in the system where those people should not be excluded, they should be included in the society in normal life. Yeah, thank you very much.
Just to add to that, in Sri Lanka, 30-year war has made many issues related to disability as well as blindness. That's inevitable, but we have to look after it. We have to include it. Thank you.
Actually, my question is also goes to Lakshani. Thank you very much for opening up such an interesting topic. Actually, it's currently quite literary based and also new open, right? So there you talked about that how that community has to be focused on. But my question is, don't we use some of the precedents, right? So was it actually, can we forget those things, right, for a while and to think novelty? Sometimes in my perspective, I think that we are impressed and we are cultured with some of the things, right? So we need some of the things that are to wear and go. But it's all right. It's not kind of a doubt or argument. But what I want to know is, what is your answer, right? Once we think about such development without being, without being whatever obstructed by others, right? What is your idea?
For that very interesting question. When presenting research of this nature, one of my biggest problems is that I have so much to say, but very little time. Thank you for that question. So, memory, when it comes to a lot of things, including writing, even narration and history, is a very tricky game, if I may say so. Because who is there to say what we should remember, how we should remember, and for what purposes should we use them? And also the possibility of forgetting everything and starting afresh. Ideally, if we can do that and reset everything like a machine, a computer, and start afresh, that's fine. But human beings are much more complicated than that, and communities are also complicated. Also, the other danger is in forgetting, is that the more we forget, the more the history reveals itself. So, to take an example from the recent history, the reason why I told you that all of us have been the other in a certain context. So, if you really look at what happened, you may have noticed that on social media, quite recently, there was a campaign where the prime focus was on pitting the military and the civil against each other. Right? So, if we had forgotten everything about what had happened in the 1970s and 80s, the same thing would have happened. So there were people to tell, okay, do not go there, you are going along the same path. If you go there, there will be another bloodbath. And there were people who were fully subscribing to we hate military camp or we hate the crazy civilians camp. Right? So if we keep on forgetting the history, certain paths will lead us and we will just be puppets who are manipulated by certain unseen political entities. So there is a danger in forgetting also, Shankar. So that is, I'm not saying that we should be thinking about conflicts all the time, but I would say, as Professor also said, if we practice more inclusivity and promote understanding, then at least we will have a hope. Otherwise, we will always be fighting someone or something. Whereas we should use that energy to fight the negativity that is there in our society, like actual problems. So that is my take on it.
This is Willarachchi, I have been supported in this. Don't take the example of military and civil. They speak the same language, they belong to the same community. In your research, it should be looked at in a different angle. The language, the race, the religion, that sort of thing. But military is part of the society, I mean the normal society, and it's a professional component. There are doctors, there are lawyers, there are academics. So it doesn't go with your research, right? Of course, they belong into a different set of people, but it does not match with the research that you are into.
I think so. She took it as an example, like when she was trying to explain what a dichotomy means, like men, women, etc., and military, civil. So those are kind of dichotomies presently available in the title. So she must have taken it as an example. Am I right?
That is true, sir. It's an example, and at the same time, we know that I fully understand where you are coming from, sir. And even I also believe that it doesn't matter whether we are men, women, differently abled, or military, civil. We are all the same. But if you look at certain trends in social media, I find it very, very alarming. Because when we know that the civil and the military people at heart have the same goal, and KDU is one perfect example for it, where we have the civilians, the military, we work together and we learn from each other. So we have a and at the end of the day, we have a common goal. And we have achieved under that unity a lot so far. But when you take a look at the larger society and the politics that are in action, sometimes it makes me worried as a researcher and a person who believes in the power of humanities in solving conflicts and bringing together a better nation. So that comment that response to Leader Kumara's question was partially influenced by that as well.
I think, we also during the last presentation, I think there was a flurry of questions about your discussion. So I would like to just direct a simple question to Ms. Amarasena. You were discussing about morphological aspects of transformation of Ceylon English. And was there any consideration of syntax, syntactic kind of influence on syntax in terms of Sri Lankan English?
Yeah, so when it comes to Sri Lankan English, we can take morphology, syntax and phonology as well. But to narrow it down, we only chose morphology part. But when it comes to syntax, once again it is a broad point to discuss. It means when we focus on syntax, we have a lot to discuss. So it is yet another part. That is why we narrowed it down to morphology.
Yeah, but I asked the question because now in recent times, a lot of emphasis, especially from University of California, a lot of emphasis is given on morphological aspects. And nobody is trying to sort of discuss about the syntactic approaches and syntactic kind of influence on syntax. So this is it just goes away. So I would like to invite you all to consider that aspect also in future research.
Yeah, for sure. And we are interested in Sri Lankan English. Me and my friend actually conduct research, and hopefully we will do research on those aspects as well. Thank you, sir.
Another question. You spoke about peer assessments. Sorry, I came halfway through. But a very simple question. These assessments, have you considered the confidentiality of that assessment and giving that feedback to somebody.
Yeah, actually, like, it's, in this discussion I talked about what teachers really think about peer assessment, and also I said that we can use different terms, peer review, peer learning, peer feedback. In different ways actually we can use this one. If we use this as a kind of assessment method, we need to be very cautious, because the mark can be inflated because of the friendship biases. Then the mark should be a kind of small number actually, perhaps if we say less than 10 or 5, because that also needs to be acknowledged and appreciated actually. If it is done in the class, even in some contexts we give marks for participation, just for coming and learning. So why not that we can't ask them to write a small paragraph, ask them to exchange mark, and ask them all to award 2 marks, or 3 marks, or 4 marks, something like, which will not affect the final overall grading in a significant manner. But that has to be appreciated, and I think in a kind of systematic manner included. That has to be further studied, needs to be studied further as to how it can be formally incorporated, and it should not affect the final overall grading as well.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I think more of qualitative aspect is there, so it's very difficult to gauge or give a measurement on that, unless otherwise you have a clear-cut guidance on the assessment system. And it was well done, very well done presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We are trying to move away from this 3-hour exam, sitting and writing Katapadan culture. So that way, your idea and approach is appreciated. I think what you are trying to say is, we try to incorporate all other means of evaluation.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you.
Actually, we as a country, because we are talking about nation building, etc. As a country, in terms of education, also I think we need to look at these things in new perspective. We see that what happens in real classroom level, and for instance, we have seen this Kupi Sanskruti, Kupi culture, where friends help each other. So why can't we formally administer this under the supervision of the teacher? That's right, yes, definitely we need to get away from this 100 marks 3-hour paper where they memorize and write, and move away from that and to get, innovate and find new concepts. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Actually, this is not really a question. This may be because of my illiteracy, I may be asking this. The word Sri Lankan English, so the British English, Indian English like, I just wanted to get your, there were 2 papers using the word the phrase Sri Lankan English. Is it the way we are, is it the normal way we are sort of explaining that? I don't know, I just want to
Yeah, some players also can actually add something. Yes, sir, we have now Englishers actually. Indian English, Sri Lankan English, African English. So now Englishers actually, it's not the language, it belongs to many people. So we identify them as varieties of the mother tongues.
My question was actually instigated, I had it on mind, but Sir said it. But I will take that dialogue further. So my question is basically for the 3 SLE papers, metacognitive strategies and the SLE. So my question is to the 3 of you, any of you, particularly maybe Vasana. Now you are talking of meta, and the other 2 papers are talking of the micro elements, if I am not mistaken. So these are 2 domains. So I would like to know what is your perception. How are we to teach SLE? Is it going to have a mix of the meta and the micro? What is your perception of the meta and what is your perception of the micro?
Thank you for the question. So when it comes to metacognitive awareness, it's basically about, training the cognitive abilities of the students, because it puts like the sort of the ground for students to go ahead with their other critical analytical skills, because that lays the sort of foundation for them to go ahead with other skills. Especially for university students, extensive reading is expected. So once they, as university teachers, one of the common problems is getting the students to read. Right? All of us experience this very often, like students really don't like reading. But once these skills are catered to, they really focus on their purpose. Like this has 3 global reading strategies, problem solving strategies, and also support reading strategies, which is a combination of all aspects for students of all streams of study. So I think if we create this space in a proper way for students, I think that will automatically lead for the improvement of other skills like writing and speaking skills.
And adding to that, now when it comes to Sri Lankan English, in the teaching process we are not teaching it right now. Still Sri Lankan English is in the process of standardization, if I am not mistaken. And it may take some time for that. So that is why current researchers are doing for Sri Lankan English and how to promote Sri Lankan English, and regarding Sri Lankan English morphology, syntax and phonology. Now when it comes to Englishes, as I said, there are a lot of English varieties, and Indian English, they are considered Indian English as their own official language. So to consider Sri Lankan English as our own English language means our variety. It will take some time, because most of us are thinking that we are speaking British English or American English. In British English, once again, it is the standard varieties received pronunciation. Even in UK, only 2.2% is speaking received pronunciation. So when it comes to Sri Lanka, once again, if I narrow down to Sri Lanka, Sri Lankan English is yet a trend, and nobody knows that we are speaking Sri Lankan English. So it will take some time to come up with the standardization process, because it is still in the process of standardization, and it will be standardized someday, so that on that point we can teach to our students one day.
And it's again the center and the periphery, the other. So we don't know whether it will become standardized one day, because we are a small nation. So actually British English, American English to varieties, but there are thousands others now, and they are actually acknowledged, considered to be that English, perhaps. Because language is always associated with power. So as long as we don't have that power, we don't know whether we will become that English.
Thank you for the explanation, Gamage here. I have another question related to that. So, as you said, you are spot on, because it will take some time Sri Lankan English to be established as one of the main languages in Sri Lanka. But English is a kind of a linked language in Sri Lanka. I mean, not kind of, it's a constitutional, but according to the constitution, it is considered as linked language. But honestly speaking, it has features like lingua franca in Sri Lanka. It's kind of official language. But don't you think that this particular aspect is not practiced due to the gap between applied linguistics and social linguistics in our context, of the way we believe? Because in applied linguistics, the teaching, syllabus designing, everything is done totally based on applied linguistics concepts. Whereas we rarely go with the social linguistics aspects. And if we don't do researchers and we don't collect authentic materials, and due to that, there is a delay. And that delay will be there forever in a way. That's what I feel. What is your opinion in this regard? Both Sampath and Lady, I'm asking.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And one drawback is regarding documentation. So when it comes to a language, to come to a place, that language should have documentation. But English, of course, we have a lot of documents, dictionaries, books we have. But when it comes to Sri Lankan English, only Michael Mayer's dictionary is there to refer regarding Sri Lankan English and words. Apart from that, there are few novels like Jayewardenapura and Theravada Man, like that. But still, I think when it comes to social linguistics, the problem is less research is done because of lack of documentation and references. So there we should include that part, and I think as future graduates and future researchers we can do it somehow, and I think the documentation part should be implemented and improved to reach to a high level. Still a linked language, but not an official language in our constitution. So though we use English in everywhere, and even in universities, curriculum, in lectures, even in offices, government offices we use, but still it is the linked language, not the official status is given. So that may be another reason.
And also, although we say that it's a second language in Sri Lanka, to most of those who are coming to the universities, we know actually it's a foreign language. So as long as this gap is there, when we talk about O-level, A-level, still we don't even test all four skills. Speaking, listening, for instance, two major components. So as long as we have these gaps actually, although we are talking like presenting theories, concepts and research findings, practical ground level reality is so different actually that we need to acknowledge, and I think most of the people are trying hard to make a change, but at ground level things are so different. That may be one reason why this standardization, even in linked language, it's used as a kind of hardware, not as a linked language just to communicate and exchange ideas. So again, power associated with the language may be one reason why English has not become very popular among the common.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. With that question and answer, we conclude this question and answer session. So let me sum up the day's proceedings so far. We had, first of all, I congratulate all the presenters for presenting some excellent work that they have done. And also, we had a very productive, fruitful discussion afterward. Although within the language and literature field, we had quite a lot of diversity in the presentations we had today. So first we had the work on metacognitive reading strategies among ESL learners. We know that reading is a very important skill together with the other three when it comes to L2 teaching in the classroom. And the thing is, teachers may take reading text and follow the reading text, yes, with questions and other activities. But if the teachers do not know what is going on in the learner's brain, learner's mind at that time, whatever the teacher does may be not that much fruitful. So the point is, now when it comes to reading, we have recently all two main areas, like say categories. One is product approach to reading, the other one is process approach to reading. So with the product approach to reading, reading is taken as an end product. And here in the process we focus on the metacognitive strategies that's going on in the reader's mind at that time at the moment of reading. This is why it is very important. We need to see, for example, like Mr. Reader brainstorming or questioning himself, questioning the text, etc., the thinking behind it. So these metacognitive strategies, if we need to actually make the teachers aware of this part of language processing, how it happens in the brain. Then only you can, when you know that, you can target your lesson properly. You can also prepare your lesson materials or what we call the activities properly. Then we had peer assessment by Sampath, and we know probably we have been focusing too much on language teaching methodology. So we have had quite a number of methods we have practiced and discarded, like grammar translation, audio, visual, audio, visual, then communicative approach, etc. But people haven't focused much on assessment part. In fact, in a real pedagogical program, assessment should take that equal part, equal value. It's not just teaching, methodology part. So, for example, we have methods, then we have focus on materials and the syllabus of the curriculum. Then what about the assessment? This is to a certain extent a neglected area. So this is why we need to experiment the other kinds of assessment that have been experimented or tried in other parts of the world. So why not peer assessment? He showed the multiple benefits of peer assessment. You may have some drawbacks, but since because there are some drawbacks, it doesn't mean that we should not practice it. And then we had in the other presentation how current social media trends affect the transformation of Sri Lankan English, morphological processes. Now we know English, or any language actually, has been constantly evolving, and with reference to English has undergone quite a lot of changes. This we discuss under language change in historical linguistics. If you take a sample of Old English, when I say Old English, that is the English with the origin of English in 5th century, 449 exactly, with the invasion of the three tribes, Lankan, Saxons and Dukes, invasion of England by those three tribes. So from that 5th century to 11th century, that is till 1066, when the French invaded England, till that time, this period we call Old English. If we take afterward, it is Middle English, and now we have from 16th century onwards Modern English. Exactly, that includes the early modern period also, beginning with Shakespeare, who was born in 1564, that is 16th century. So, if we take a sample of Old English, we cannot understand. It's totally like a different language, except for some of the prepositions which still remain in modern English, from Old English to modern English. So the point is, since recently, there has been a lot of pressure on English by the social media. It's not only on English, even on Sinhala, right? So she discussed very interestingly, very usefully, taking three aspects, three processes. That's affixation, borrowing, then reduplication, etc. And yes, English has been subject to change in all its areas, including vocabulary, phonology, and syntax. And these processes have contributed greatly to that change. And that's why we need to look at it in more detail. It's in a way sociolinguistics as well, because it belongs to the sociolinguistic domain to some extent. You can discuss kind of what you call code stitching. If you look at how these media people use English as well as Sinhala. So that's very interesting. Then we had the next presentation on IPA and blindness literacy need for defining and reconstruct. Yes, the speaker began with the neurological basis of vision, and then went on to again the social application, how the society receives that in a kind of a sociological approach where you have exclusion and inclusion. And then the speaker emphasized the necessity to construct this ECB, the construct for ECB. And yes, of course, now if there are so many other constructs exist for the areas, why not for the eye and blindness? And it's novel research. It's totally new, as the speaker mentioned. So you need to actually promote it. And then we had the final one on architecting the nation from Ceylon to Sri Lanka and the role of the evil other. This other has been a concept that has been subject to much discussion in different literary theories, including deconstruction. And also it has been discussed by so many post-colonial writers. So, and she also referred to Fanon. Probably I think you referred to Fanon's Record of Earth. Yeah, Fanon was a psychiatrist who was instrumental in the liberation struggle of Algeria from the French domination. So there is a great deal of Fanon's thinking here, and the way you construct the other as well as the way you interpret the other is quite important. And I don't need to go into the aspects of the particular the examples you took, but once again, they also contrast the two examples, the two people you took, and you can also do a kind of a discourse analysis of this, going into other areas as well. So altogether, as I said, we had quite a lot of diversity, even within the same language and literature field. So once again, I congratulate all the presenters for their work, and I hope you will continue with these more, and then publish also in journals your work. And then I also thank the audience for their keen interest in all the presentations and those who ask questions. So once again, thank you very much. With that, we conclude this first session on language and literature. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, now we have come to the end of this technical session, which was interesting and informative. We have the honor of inviting Professor Lalith Ananda, the chairperson of this session, to present certificates to the presenters. Ms. W.S. Sudusinghe,
Dr. Pushpakumara,
Ms. S.A. Amarasena,
Ms. Bandara,
Ms. DDL Willarachchi,
Thank you, sir. Sir, please remain for a moment. Now, I would like to invite Major General Lal Gunasekara, the Rector of Metropolitan Campus, KDU. He will be accompanied by Mr. Kitsiri Amaratunga, the Dean, Faculty of Management, Social Sciences and Humanities, to present a token of appreciation to the session chair. Professor. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to thank Professor Lalith Ananda for chairing this session.
The best co-representation will be announced at 15-20 hours.
The next technical session on social sciences will commence at 1300 hours at the same venue. So, this concludes the first technical session of Management, Social Sciences and Humanities. Thank you.